Chael Sonnen is known for his amazing trash talk, but apart from that, Sonnen was also a brilliant fighter. From his ruthless beating of Brian Stann to his epic rivalry against Anderson Silva, here are Chael Sonnen's 7 biggest MMA fights. Number 7. Chael Sonnen vs. Brian Stann. Sonnen and Stann met at UFC 136. Chael was desperate for another title shot, after narrowly losing against Anderson Silva a few months earlier. But things started getting difficult when Chael found himself in legal trouble for doping and money laundering. What was he thinking? Sonnen was suspended, but despite the suspension, Sonnen was at the peak of his abilities around this time. When Sonnen finally returned at UFC 136, he stormed into the fight with only one thought on his mind: winning. Sonnen was never a calm and collected fighter, but damn, he looked especially furious in this fight. Round 1 was a trademark Chael Sonnen ground and pound, and in round 2, Chael secured one of his textbook submissions with an arm triangle. One more fight and Chael Sonnen had his rematch against Silva for the middleweight crown. Number 6 is Chael Sonnen vs. Shogun Rua. Sonnen had lost badly against John Jones in 2013, so Chael urgently needed a convincing win that year. His next opponent was Shogun Rua, the former light heavyweight champion. Much like Sonnen, Rua had a lot to prove. Shogun had lost 3 out of his 5 previous fights, so he couldn't go down again. Unfortunately for Rua, Chael Sonnen was feeling especially strong that night. Sonnen secured a takedown seconds into the fight, and he kept Rua exactly where he wanted him, on the ground. Sonnen pounded Rua for most of the round. Then, with 1 minute to go, Sonnen stood up to trap Shogun into a perfect guillotine. Rua tapped. And that marked Chael Sonnen's last win ever in the UFC. After the fight, in his own unique style, Chael Sonnen called out Wanderlei Silva. Right here on the UFC's new home, Fox Sports 1. Wanderlei Silva, 6 foot tall and 205 pounds. Boy, until I met you, I didn't know they could stack crap that high. Now, can you guess who we have at number 5? Number 5, Chael Sonnen vs. Wanderlei Silva. This fight happened at Bellator 180 in 2017, but the rivalry went way back. Sonnen and Wanderlei coached in The Ultimate Fighter in 2013. And of course, we all expected a fight between them when the show was finished. As you might have guessed, the pair didn't exactly get along. Wait, that's an understatement. Sonnen and Silva hated each other. They even got into a fight after an argument on the show. Silva actually injured his hand in their dumb fight, so their Ultimate Fighter bout was rescheduled. After that, it was revealed that Sonnen had failed a drug test. Oops. So Chael was out for nearly 3 years. Eventually, in 2017, Chael signed with Bellator, and we finally got to see him get it on with Wanderlei in the octagon. Sonnen put on a great performance and dominated Wanderlei. That must have felt really good for Sonnen. It was one of the last wins in Chael Sonnen's long career, and probably one of his favorites. Number 4, Chael Sonnen vs. Paulo Filho. Chael Sonnen was released by the UFC in 2006, but of course, Sonnen still had plenty of fights left in him. Determined to make it back to the UFC, Chael fought in the WEC promotion. Sonnen eventually faced Filho for the WEC middleweight title in 2007. The first round was intense. Chael looked great on his feet, but Filho was very close to a submission. In the second round, Paulo secured a successful armbar, but Sonnen was far from giving up. Despite this, the referee controversially stepped in and stopped the fight. Because of the controversial stoppage, Sonnen was soon awarded a rematch. Sonnen has been very unlucky when it comes to taking the title belt. In the rematch, Filho didn't manage to make the weight, so the fight couldn't be considered a title fight. Nevertheless, it went ahead without a belt on the line. This time, Sonnen won by unanimous decision, but because of the weight issue, there was no title for Chael. Well, at least officially. It turns out that Filho felt bad for Sonnen and mailed the belt to him after the fight. That was nice of him. And we're on to our top 3. Can you guess which fights made it to the top? Number 3, Chael Sonnen vs. Jon Jones. Now, this definitely wasn't Chael's proudest moment, but it definitely belongs here, as it was Sonnen's last ever title fight in MMA. As you probably remember, Jon Jones dominated Chael Sonnen with a TKO in the first round. This was Jones' 5th title defense, and Jones remains practically unbeaten to this day. Well, you might not remember, Chael was actually surprisingly close to winning this fight. Wait, what? That's right. Even though he dominated the fight, Jones managed to snap his toe when he took Chael down. If the fight had reached the end of the round, Jon Jones would almost definitely have forfeited the fight. It's fair to say that Chael Sonnen might have been 20 seconds away from beating the best fighter in the history of the UFC. What a legend. Number 2. Chael Sonnen vs. Nate Marquardt. Sonnen faced Marquardt at UFC 109. Chael needed to win this fight badly if he wanted a title shot against Anderson Silva. Chael's pre-fight antics definitely weren't as loud as usual, and that's because this time, Sonnen was focused on one thing: beating Nate Marquardt and getting his first title shot in the UFC. Marquardt came painfully close to submitting Sonnen with 2 guillotine chokes. But Sonnen was a warrior that night. He escaped both chokes and pounded Nate in the 3 rounds. That's why nobody was surprised when Sonnen won the fight by unanimous decision. After the fight, Chael said he would rather have gone to sleep than tapped out. As we know, Chael says a lot of stuff, but I think Sonnen definitely backed that one up. At number 1, we have Sonnen's epic battles against Anderson Silva. Back in 2010, Anderson Silva was dominating the UFC middleweight division. But of course, Chael was desperate for a chance to challenge him. As always, Sonnen's theatrics were useful for getting the title shot. But to be fair to Chael, he was coming off 3 straight victories, including Sonnen's impressive performance against Marquardt and Okami. Even so, this was Silva's 7th title defense, so it's hardly surprising that Anderson Silva walked into the fight as the favorite. However, less than a minute into the fight, a huge left hook from Sonnen shocked the Oakland crowd. Sonnen was hitting hard that night. Anderson Silva took over 300 total strikes from Chael Sonnen over 5 rounds. 300! I can't believe Silva stayed on his feet. But he did. And with less than 2 minutes left in the final round, Anderson Silva managed to submit Chael Sonnen. This is, without a doubt, one of the most epic moments in UFC history, and definitely the most frustrating day in Chael Sonnen's life. Why? Because this fight was the closest Chael was to winning a UFC title belt. Of course, Sonnen's performance deserved a rematch. The rematch eventually took place at UFC 148 in July 2012. Once again, Sonnen started off strong, but a mistake in the second round was the beginning of the end. Anderson gracefully avoided a spinning elbow by Chael. From there, Silva pounded the fighter dominantly and finally secured his second win over Chael Sonnen. To this day, Chael Sonnen is generally regarded as the best fighter who has never won a title belt. Those were Chael Sonnen's 7 biggest MMA fights.